Hey, it's Richard Pyatt. Welcome to another Richard's Ride. This one's a special one, a Richard's Ride Extra. We got curious after seeing Calhoun County Sheriff Matt Saxton driving around in parades in this old squad car. Looked like maybe Sheriff Andy ought to be driving it. So we went and took a look. Turns out it's a 1964 Chrysler 300K. It has a 413 wedge V8 engine in it, and it sounds pretty good. Turns out this is a tribute car donated by the Jenks family of Marshall to Calhoun County some years ago, and it's used as a public relations piece. And so you'll see the sheriff sometimes driving around in it, usually in a parade, and folks often give it the thumbs up. So, what is this car, Sheriff?
It's a 1964 Chrysler 300.
What's the history of this car?
Well, it was donated by a Marshall gentleman here by the name of Milt Jenks. And Milt had this vehicle and approached at the time Sheriff Byam about giving Sheriff Byam the car personally. And Sheriff Byam at the time said, well, how about you give it to the agency and then the agency can use it. Sheriff after sheriff can continue to use it for parades and public events.
So it was already dressed as a patrol car?
Yes, and the way it is today is the way it came to us. I mean, we've done some volunteer work on. We don't spend county money to maintain and keep it up, so we do work with local folks to help keep it on the road.
So it's essentially a public outreach kind of vehicle.
It is. I mean, it's great for parades, different events throughout the county. I personally drive it in just about every parade throughout the county, and it's always a conversation starter, and kids like it, adults, senior citizens. It's just a good way to have positive interaction with the community.
What do you understand to be the history of the car? Was it ever a patrol car?
To my knowledge, it was not a patrol car. It was a vehicle that Mr. Jenks had and restored and put into the how you see it today.
Very cool. It's getting some attention right now. Yeah. It's obviously something that helps with community outreach, as you said. But is there any other use for it that you've employed ever?
You know, obviously we wouldn't use it for patrol, even in terrible budget times. It's more so an instrument for PR. I do take it to schools, and as you know, I do the 4th grade program throughout the county, and sometimes I'll take this vehicle along as opposed to a regular marked unit. But the biggest thing is the positive interaction with the community, which we in law enforcement are always looking for ways to have positive interactions with the community.
And I imagine that when you take it somewhere to be worked on, folks get a good feeling about working on it because of what it represents.
Yeah, they do. You know, and a lot of people, there's not a lot of cars that come into shops. I mean, you don't have all the computers and all that stuff to work with, and you can actually fit your hands and your arms down in to work on the motor.
Yeah, those are the kinds that the car guys really appreciate. I was at a Gilmore show not long ago. It was an old pickup truck there, and you could almost have a party inside that engine compartment. There was so much room to work in there.
Well, you don't have to take the front bumper off to change a headlight.
Right, which he's not kidding. You have to do that now. in a lot of cars. All right.
But I mean, as you can see today, we stopped at the stoplight. Somebody giving the thumbs up and waving, and
Yeah.
when I take it to parades, some of the most fun times are getting it to the parade. I get people waving, thumbs up, stopping, wanting to talk, and so it's just like today, just driving it around.
You know, the 300 mark dates back to 1955 at Chrysler. This 300K was a 1964 model. The 300 name came back in 1999 as a 300M, and of course, Chrysler still sells a 300 model today. So if you talk about heritage marks, that's pretty good. This engine has 360 horsepower. There were about 3,000 Chrysler 300Ks made, 600 more as convertibles. We imagine these days finding one is pretty rare.